Fun.
Time does indeed fly when you're having fun. Hi, everyone. Thanks to everyone joining us today. I am personally super excited for this conversation. It is even more relevant than we had thought, I think, given some recent studies and news that's been coming out. So excited to have this conversation with you, Wendy.
Oh my God, so excited. Yeah, when we planned this, I mean, we planned like a month in advance and we did not know. And I saw your post and I was blown away that I had to go take a look at it. So we're going to talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
Which it's really funny because I'm a huge fan of AI. I really am, when used the right way. But then I get into conversations with my daughter and she's one of those like save the planet, it's taking so much of our energy and it takes the creativity away. I think using it right, it doesn't, it enhances it. But we're going to talk about, first of all, how we're using it in our business.
Yeah.
And then before we do that, I'd like to talk about the study that came out because I think it's fascinating.
Absolutely.
And so I'll let you take the lead on that one and then we can answer questions and talk about it a little bit further.
Yeah, and so that's a great point. If you're here, comments are always a little bit delayed on these streams, but if you're here, drop a note in the comments, let us know. And if you have any questions, let us know. So the study came out from MIT Media Lab, and I'm not going to remember all of the specifics perfectly, but it was basically, I want to say, a 4-month study where they divided students into 3 different groups. And one group only used LLMs. I don't know if it was specifically ChatGPT. I want to say it very likely was, but only used LLMs to write essays. The second group used search engines to write these essays. And then the third group only used their brain power. They didn't use any of these tools. And the results were really, really interesting. For one, I remember that the group that only used the LLMs to write their essays, their work was graded as less interesting, less unique, just didn't resonate as well with the readers. What was really interesting was that when the students were asked about something in those essays, if they were in the group that used the LLMs to write those essays, they really couldn't recall what was in their own essays. And these studies were done in a way that was measuring like brain activity, like brain waves.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing that really troubled me is when they flipped those groups. And so they said to the students who were using ChatGPT or AI, okay, now you write just with your own brain power. Their levels of cognitive skill and cognitive ability did not go back to where they had been before. They were still lower. And that was interesting to me and frightening to me. Because I'm not anti-AI, right? Like the point of my post was not to be like, AI is evil, don't use it. It was just to say, I think we have to really think about when we find a shortcut to something and when we're using a tool that has the capabilities to really do a lot of the work for us. What's the trade-off, and are we using it in the best way possible?
I agree. And it's funny because that is what we were going to speak about today, but it makes sense to me. Back when I was in college, I spent a semester abroad. I went to the Ealing College of Higher Education in London. And I was on the business curriculum, but history was a required part of attending. And it was fascinating learning about the history of London. But for the test, the professor gave us the prompts for like, this is what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask one of these 5 questions or 2 of these 5 questions. So you had to know the information on all of that. And you had to know it well because he's already telling you what he's going to ask.
Yeah.
So I spent countless hours till like I still have a dent in my thumb writing and rewriting. And then in my mind's eye, I could recall it verbatim, right? Like this is what I wrote and that's what I did. He actually wound up giving me a B++ because nobody's perfect and he doesn't give A's. But
oh my God, that is an evil professor. And I do not subscribe to that mentality at all.
Me neither. But the point of the story really is that when you write it, you recall it.
Yes.
When somebody tells it to you, unless you're one of those like people that have that auditory act, like catch and keep.
Photographic memory, yeah.
Yeah, less than photographic, auditory graphic, right? Like photographic is you see it.
Oh,
But
you're
when
being
you
told
hear
it.
it,
Yeah.
yes. And photographic as well, I guess. But yeah, so I think it's interesting that they didn't go back to the pre, AI levels of what they were
Yes.
doing.
And
That to me is crazy.
it, I would be interested in seeing something like that continue, right? So if they continued not to use any LLMs for writing after, several more weeks or several more months, what might that activity look like? I think it's fascinating. Um, you
Yes.
know, proceed with caution, right? My initial concern with AI was that it was going to lead to people being less connected, less human centric, right? That it was going to be more isolating. This is honestly something I hadn't really thought about, and thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah, no, it is. It really is. And I think partially the reason that you didn't think about it is that you're using it in a way which doesn't replace
Mhm.
what you're doing and what you're thinking, but rather augments it or,
Yeah.
enhances it.
Agreed.
Right.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
here's the question. How do you use AI in your business?
Um, Probably not as much as I could or should.
Yes.
So I've done a couple of things. So one, when it comes to content, I have 2 series of posts that I do every Friday, every Sunday. I use AI to create those images. Um, Sometimes it's a frustrating process. Sometimes it gets it right immediately, and I'm super happy. But I enjoy that. I think it's creative. I'm giving my own inputs as to what I want it to look like. So that's one way that I'm using it. I use it to edit for sure, right? There are times when I go back and I read my own content and I say, oh, okay, I used that word about 16 times. I need to find a different word substitute for that word. And so I will definitely use AI to come up with a different phrasing or a different word. A big use case for me that I actually really get a lot of benefit from is I am not one of those people that can just put a beautiful PowerPoint presentation together, right? My Canva skills are a little lacking. And so I do a lot of presentations. I'm asked to come speak to groups a lot, and I will write all my information on Google Slides. And then I'll upload those Google Slides into an app called Gamma. And I'll tell Gamma, keep my original content, just make it look pretty. And in about 35 seconds, I will have a deck that I'm almost always incredibly happy with. It's keeping all the words that I put in there. It's not changing what I said, but it's adding visuals. It's adding a color theme.
Right.
It makes it look professional. And I'm serious, it takes under a minute. And it would take me 5 hours and I wouldn't be as happy with it. So that's a huge use case for me. And then I do a little bit of automation, right, with things like Zapier. And that's a place where I definitely could do more, and I need to probably learn how to do more.
Right.
But I've taken those little baby steps.
And so similar, same, right? Started with actually Jarvis. So Jarvis was Jasper before it became Jasper, and they got sued by Marvel, and they had to change it from Jarvis to they went with Jasper. And this is before ChatGPT was launched to the public. And I used it. You could think Grammarly. Like Grammarly was like really one of the original AIs. So was this Jasper Jarvis, and then ChatGPT came out, and it really transformed everything. People started using it. I jumped right on. I mean, I was one of the first, like early adopters. Once it was available to the public, I know people who were able to test it before it was even available. Like that's actually very cool.
Yep.
So used it, and I used it kind of the way I do now, but now I use it more. So I write my content, right? And I put it in there and I ask it to give me, feedback, right? And the same thing with you. I use the same word over and over again. And what I used to do was go to thesaurus.com, right?
Yep.
And I would look up, and so what's the difference if I'm using this program or this program, right? Other than Thesaurus, I'd have to, in my head read the sentence and go, yeah, this word is better, or no, I can't really find the right word. So maybe there was a little bit more thinking involved, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
And so using ChatGPT to really make the corrections and to, you know, sometimes, and you know this, it starts writing for you, even though you didn't ask it to, it gives you feedback that wasn't yours.
Yeah. No thanks.
And sometimes I like what it says though. And sometimes I really don't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if I do, I may incorporate a sentence or two that wasn't my original, but it says exactly what I wanted to say. But the thing is, the thoughts and the subject matter is mine and my expertise.
Yes.
I'm not asking it to write about the subject. I might just be asking it to help me, fluff up, like putting a dryer sheet in the dryer so it's anti-static, right? Like just help with that. So that's as far as like the LLMs and Claude I've been using for a while too. I really like Claude. Gamma I've been using for a while. I've seen it go. I put the link in the chat because I think it's really one of the, better AI tools. Incredible, really incredible. Although, how many times now are you looking at somebody's presentation and you go, oh, they did that with Gamma because there's like a consistency.
You can tell. You can, and but I would say I don't have a problem with that. No. Again, as long as you're not, so there is a way to have Gamma just write the whole thing for you, right?
Right.
And again, that just feels very inauthentic to me, right? And there were one or two times when I first started that I didn't realize like what boxes to click and what choices to make. And so I didn't right out of the gate say, preserve my original data. And so I would get something back and I'd say, that's weird. That's not what I said. And then I realized what I had to do. But again, like I didn't usually end up liking the things that it wrote, right? Because it's thinking in its own way. It's not thinking the way you think. It's not understanding the concepts that you want to put forward. So it might take something, 8, 9, 10 sentences and think, oh, this is the key point you want to drive home, but it really isn't. And so it's so important, in my opinion, that we use these tools as tools, right? Don't let it replace our own critical thinking, our own thoughts, our own ideas and inputs. It should be used to enhance.
And then here's what happens, right? When somebody uses AI to do everything for them, and we talk often, there's just a lot of noise out there, a lot of inauthentic noise, and all of these creators and influencers that are teaching people how to do things, never having gone through it themselves.
Yeah.
So first of all, there's misinformation being spread, but they're putting it out like this because they're not really paying attention to it. They're creating and posting, but they're not creating. They're pressing a button and posting, pressing a button and pressing a button, pressing a button, pressing a button. But then if you meet that person in real life, or you wind up on a Zoom call with them, they cannot hold a conversation about the subject for which they're posting. And
that's right.
Do you remember the first time that somebody said to you, oh my God, you're exactly the same in person that you are online?
Yes. Well, maybe not the first time, but I know when people have said it, and I love that. That should always be the goal, right? And it actually just reminds me of our friend Kevin Turner, who, if y'all are not following, you should. He posted today about profile photos, right? And how if your profile photo is really outdated, you might want to get a new one, because when you show up in real life, you should be recognizable. And it's the same concept, right? And this has happened to me. Not lying, I have walked right by someone not realizing who they were because I had only seen their LinkedIn profile photo, and they didn't look like that. It was, a photo from 15 years ago.
And look, we all want to look good, right? We all want to put our best foot forward, but within reason.
Yes.
Right? Within reason.
Otherwise, it's just, I like to say, the LinkedIn version of catfishing.
or the IG version, right? Like,
exactly.
Yes. The IG version of your life. And then I'm trying to think. So I just, as you know, I just recently built an app. So using AI.
Yes.
It needs to be perfected a little bit, but no code, right? There are programs out there now that you can It takes time. It takes time to figure out exactly what you want it to do, walk it through, make the changes. But the point is that you can do it, right? And I just heard that OpenAI bought that program that I was using. It's called Base 44. For those of you who want to know, Base 44.
Really interesting.
Yes. So right now there's some glitches as there's a changeover, but yes. So you can write your own app. Mind map helps you create agents from custom GPTs, right? So that's another really cool tool that I've been playing with. So it's about making your life easier. It's about taking some of the things that maybe you would hire a VA for, but sometimes and listen, there's a point that you really need a VA, a person to do stuff. And then there's a point where it's an automated, repetitive, task that AI and automation tools work.
So have you used any AI agents? Have you built any, or are you using any? Or because you're you're more advanced on this part of it than I am for sure. So what are you thinking of using them for?
So I am in process building agents, and trying to stack GPTs, because when you build a GPT, right, and I'm actually even thinking back to the beginning when custom GPTs first came out. I remember building one so that my writing would sound like me, and now it just does, right? Like ChatGPT itself did that. But if you have a process in your business, right, and you take that and you make a custom GPT, it should be a single step. It shouldn't be do this and then do this and then do this and then do this, right? Because it gets confused, and then it doesn't, maybe eventually you can give it like a 10-step like process, but a GPT should really be like a single process. So then what you want to do is you want to stack GPTs. So then you go, okay, I'm going to use this GPT, and let's talk about it from the point of creating content, just as an example. So you create a GPT that sounds like you. And then you
lost me already, but okay, go.
Well, I'm just saying, because if you can put in, but again, it's still not creating the content. It's just give me feedback on this and make changes. And when it makes changes still in your voice, right? Like if you're using the same word, when it redoes the sentence, it's in your voice. And actually what's really funny is there are sometimes I'll put in information and it will say to me, do you want me to write this in the professional, warm voice of Wendy Shore? It's not. What? I just wrote it.
That's anyway. That's interesting. Okay.
So, no, let's even go different. Let's say you're trying to really figure out your ideal client, right? So you can feed it. It'll ask you questions. Yes. What do you do, right? And so you can come up with a custom GPT that helps narrow down your ideal client. Okay.
I have used a GPT like that. It is fascinating.
It is fascinating, right? Yes. And so then you don't stop there. Okay. So now what are the pain points besides what I do? What are the pain points that my ideal client is going through? And it will search the internet and it'll search like some of the information out there, and it'll give you a list of some of the pain points that your client's going through. That's another GPT, right? Then you can say, what can I offer them? What can I build and offer them that might help them with these pain points? And then it may give you a list of, you could do a program on this, or you could do a webinar on that, or you can write a digital course on this. So it'll give you ideas of what you could do. Of course, what you do would then be, I don't really want to do a webinar, but I'd love to write a digital course. So maybe that's what I want to do. And maybe I'll do it on this subject because I am an expert in this subject. So now it's actually just gotten you from point A to point D, yes, right? With very little work. Now from D on, I think that there has to be a lot more you in there. But anyway, going back, we've just taken 4 GPTs. When you put them together, it's an agent.
Yes.
So you're building an agent from this step, this step, this step, this step. And then it shortens the path between this is what I do and this is what I'm going to offer.
So I've used a GPT like that, and I have to say it was extremely helpful in getting me to focus, right, on who really is my ICP, who do I really want to serve, what's the best way for me to do that. And then you made me think of another GPT that I use. Now, I didn't build either of these GTPs, so I'm just very grateful to the people who had the skills and then shared them with me. But I also used a GPT to create a media kit, right? Because how many times do you get asked when you apply as a speaker or you apply, as a participant in something, oh, can you send over your media kit?
Right.
So this was super helpful for me because, again, I don't have next level Canva skills, and it takes me a lot longer to do these things than most people. And so that was a huge time saver for me, right? It really helped me to build out a media kit, just like a one pager even, and save me hours of time.
And where I see it for you, when you work with clients and when you're helping them with their personal branding, there is a series of questions that you ask that they need to have the information for, right? Before you can really even go through the next steps and start crafting for them their personal, right? Their personal brand. That could be a GPT or an agent, right? That could be something where you create, because you know the questions that you need to ask, right?
Right.
And so you're actually creating a GPT to help them gather the information, which will then save time. When you start working with them, they've already got everything together and they can go further with you for the time allotted because they've already gathered some of the information, right? And that's a better customer experience because they know what they need. So that's where I see them being helpful. Now, there are ones that do everything for you. And at that point, I feel you get lost in the sauce. That's where the creativity goes away. That's where things get, in my opinion, dumbed down.
Yep.
And then you have people who are helping people who have no business helping people.
Correct. And to your point, I think that then gets exposed later on, right? So you get to this point and then you either have a face-to-face or you have an in real life or you have a real concern that the GPT or the technology can't address. And then all of a sudden the person can't help you.
Right. But sometimes there's a lot between that, or sometimes people spend money first and realize it after.
Yep.
And that's the point that really burns me because I just hate seeing people get taken advantage of. And then there's a hesitation to work with somebody like you or I who are not out there going like sell, push. But where we really have the experience and the knowledge to help people. That's why we sort of had to get over our, I need to be able to sell. I mean, I did, but I remember, and I know this is off topic, but I remember sending that first DM. Right?
Yeah.
Telling somebody, not that I got a DM, but actually almost like a warm DM type thing.
Yep. Reach out and outreach. Yeah.
And do you remember, my heart was literally beating when I was first going to send it. This is not me. I don't ask people to work with me, right? People come to me.
Yep.
And they should, but there's just a lot of noise out there. So you have to stand out. And that's one of the things I think we should talk about next is, how do you stand out with all this AI noise?
Well, no, that's my webinar tomorrow, Wendy. Don't be encroaching on my webinar. No, seriously. So first of all, yes, that is literally the topic of my webinar tomorrow. Finding your unique voice in the noise. But it's a very relevant question, right? Because we are really at risk of a sea of sameness, right? So everybody talks about AI is the great equalizer. Right. And there's truth to that. It is a great equalizer in many ways. It gives many of us access to information and abilities that we might not otherwise have, but it also can bring the playing field down. As it's leveling the playing field, is it lifting it up or is it bringing it down? Because everybody is starting to look and sound the same, right? How many times have you been on LinkedIn, right? And let's talk about LinkedIn because that's where we spend the majority of our social media time. How many times have you read something and been like, didn't I just see that?
Oh, almost verbatim.
Right? Yep. Because there is a lot of this repetition of formatting, repetition of writing style. ChatGPT has a very distinct writing style, right? There's some certain giveaways, and I'm not talking M dashes because I love a good M dash, but okay, yeah, if there's like 18 M dashes in the post, it was probably written by ChatGPT. But there's certain buzzwords and phrases that ChatGPT loves, and there's certain,
Yep.
templated looks that ChatGPT loves. And so not only are the subjects sometimes very similar, but just the way it looks is very similar. And to me, that's not a personal brand. That's not thought leadership. And I know those are two very buzzy terms and some people roll their eyes at them. But at the end of the day, the whole point, in my opinion, of sharing content is to show people who you are, to show people what you know, to show people how you can help them, either because you want them as a client or you want them to hire you to be on their team. If you're just relying on something else to do all that work for you and you look and sound just like everyone else, it's not really serving you, and it's not serving your audience.
Agreed. It's interesting. Yeah. The level playing field. Well, the level playing field just means like where'd the mountains go, right? There's fewer mountains and hills. And so how do you stand out, right, in this sea of sameness? And listen, I love, I was using big spaces before that became a thing and before ChatGPT, because I always thought it was just more readable, right? I love the laddered look of some of the posts. I do that manually, right? Because I like it. I think it makes it readable. It looks aesthetically pleasing, but certain phrases that ChatGPT uses, I have stopped using the word foster.
Oh God, yes.
I used to really like that word.
No, I can't stand it.
I can't stand it anymore.
The other big one is no fluff.
No fluff.
No fluff. All chat.
Here's the truth. Or here's the truth.
Yep. Here's the truth. Also, in today's blah, blah, blah landscape.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? That is actually something I would have said before ChatGPT.
I might have.
It really is.
That one I might have. Might have. No fluff would never have come out of my mouth.
In today's changing business landscape, I would have said that without a problem.
Yes.
Yes.
In today's ever-changing business environment, it's more important than ever to foster relationships with no fluff.
Because here's the truth.
Now we got them all.
All right. I want to go look at some of these comments that we have gotten and questions. I think we could go on for like the next hour just talking about this, but I want to address some of the people who are with us today.
Yes.
Yep. So let me go back here. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. And Laura says she's a write and recall person. Yeah, just like me.
Yes.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Lee. Felipe. I'm so glad he always joins us so much.
Wow.
So, and I'm not sure if it's Soon or Sean, but we'll call her Debbie.
Debbie.
Yes. I use AI to enhance my voice, not replace it. Exactly. It can never truly replace it because it doesn't carry the emotion, intent, or human depth that makes my content real. That's exactly how we feel. That's exactly it. And that is so well said. Thank you for sharing that. Jay says he has never tested or even used AI. Wow.
Yeah.
So Jay, here's the thing.
Here's the
truth. I think that learning to use AI is going to be important, right? Maybe not to use it to write content, but to use it, and you may be using it more than you think, because if you use Siri, for example, that's AI. They need to totally upgrade Siri, but Siri is AI. Grammarly was AI.
Alexa is AI. Yeah.
Alexa is AI, right? Where AI is more integrated than we realize. Some of the computer stuff in the car is AI. But learning how to use it could be the difference going forward. And again, not necessarily the LLMs to create content, but using some of the different AI programs to make your life and tasks faster. And if you want any feedback, or if you want to, please feel free to reach out to me, email me, DM me, ask me questions. Melissa as well. We're always, for what we know, like we're not at a super high level AI, users or, creators. but we have a pretty good, more than basic understanding. Not quite intermediate yet, but we're getting there. But we do use AI in our business, and we're intending to use it more, because I feel that, you're going to get left behind if you don't at least know how to use it.
If you don't at least understand some of its capabilities and some of what it can do for you. Yes, I really agree with that statement. I never wanted to take over for me. I never wanted to replace, me, because I truly believe, I'm a solopreneur, right? If someone is hiring me, it's because you want to work with me. I don't want it to replace that. And there's definitely advantages to knowing how to leverage it in your business.
The other thing that I believe is that as AI integrates more and more into our lives, I think we're going to need to work more on our soft skills.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is going to make the difference. So as everybody is going to know AI, and everybody's going to learn AI, and everybody's going to be able to use AI, then what's going to set us apart is us. Call it our personal brand, but it's who we are. Our morals, our vision, our thoughts, our ideas, our ability to handle grace under pressure, our ability to multitask and do things, and, make somebody feel important when they walk in a room. I'm thinking all of the things that I learned in the restaurant business that I think are irreplaceable, right? And those are soft skills that are learned, especially like crisis management, which is both a hard skill and a soft skill, right? When you can remain calm in the face of a crisis and then start figuring out what has to be done in the moment, that skill is invaluable.
Yes. I think, and I know we're over time, so I know we will wrap up in shortly, but I think that's a really important point, right? It's almost going to reverse itself. So we're talking now about how it's important to understand how to leverage AI, and it's going to be a differentiator in your business. And I agree with you. I think in the not so distant future, it's going to reverse itself, and the AI usage will sort of be just table stakes and understood. And then what do you bring to it as a person with your own, unique skills and the things that people like about you, right? We always talk in branding about know, like, and trust. That's not going to go away. It's actually going to become more relevant than ever.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Well said. So I thought that was a great note to end on. I'm so glad for everybody who joined us today.
Yes, thank you.
For everybody who is watching the replay, just drop any comments. Let us know if you have any thoughts or what you thought of this. And if there's anything else you'd like us to talk about, because we meet every month, we talk about different topics, and anything that has to do with growing your business. We are both solopreneurs, growing our business, and we love to help people. And we love to talk about the things we're doing that can help move the needle forward in somebody else's business. So with that, we're going to sign off. We're going to say goodbye. I got to find my mouse. I'm in a client's office, and I have like my laptop, and I have their computer. And so it's like 3 mouses, 2 keyboards.
Nobody needs 3 mouses. Is it mouses or mice? Anyway, nobody needs 3 of them.
I know, right? Well, I guess if it was an animal, it would definitely be mice. But if it's a thing, is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Musings of the solopreneur.